Are you a family caregiver? Are you caregiving for someone who can no longer take care of themselves? Are you overwhelmed? This is CareGiverSolutions.info with Marcia Teele. Marcia will be hosting an hour of true stories and information, tips and updates of the latest research and necessary information in the caregiving field, focusing on you, the family caregiver. An Alzheimer's disease and dementia care expert, Marcia has 15 years of hands-on experience at Arden Courts, a leader in assisted living dementia communities here in the U.S. Marcia covers everything you need to know as a family caregiver, especially if you care for a loved one with Alzheimer's disease or other related dementia or chronic illness. If you have a friend or relative that is also a family caregiver, call them now. They won't want to miss a minute. And let them know they can watch on CareGiverSolutions.info. And they can listen on WNN 1470 AM in South Florida or nationally on the iHeartRadio app. Now, sit back, relax, and learn from our host, Marcia Teele, as she brings information to you that may just be the caregiving solution you need.
Hi, and welcome to our show. Thank you for joining us this evening. So happy that you decided to do that. CareGiverSolutions.info was created especially for you, the family caregiver, to provide information from professional experts in the field that can help you as a family caregiver solve your caregiving problems. And so I'm so happy that you're with us today. We're going to have lots and lots of great information every week, and you'll be hearing from elder law attorneys, from specialists in the field of home health care, from nursing home administrators, from physicians, including psychiatrists, also some psychologists, and we're going to let you know the difference between those two. We also will have some neurologists coming to give us some latest information on what's going out there in the field of research on Alzheimer's and dementia. And so I'm very happy that you've joined us today, and I'm especially happy to have in our studio with us today our guest speaker. And so I would like to introduce him. He's been a longtime friend of mine, probably over 15 years, and I actually met Fred when I decided to take some sign language classes. No, I don't have anyone in my family that's deaf, and no, I didn't really have a reason to do it, but I was called to learn sign language, and that's how I found Fred. So I've asked Fred to join us today. He's an expert in the field of hearing, and so welcome, Fred Schott.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
And for those of you that are listening by the radio and couldn't see what I just did, I just said welcome to Fred, not only verbally, but in American Sign Language. So thank you, Fred. And he is here. He is representing Audiology with a Heart. It's a nonprofit organization, and Fred is the outreach specialist. And so, Fred, I wanted to have you come with us today to talk about hearing loss. We're going to get into a lot of things about what that means to people. But first of all, I'm very curious. Tell me your background, how long you've been in this field, and tell me about why you're doing it.
Well, a lot of times people think that you get into this field because you have family members who are have a hearing loss. And I was kind of brought in the back door. Probably almost 30 years ago, I was a church musician in northern Kentucky, and we had interpreters there who interpreted our music. And I got to know one of those interpreters, and she kind of pulled me into that. Her name's Mary Ann Barth. She's nationally known for a lot of the work that she's done. But she was an interpreter, and interestingly enough, she herself went deaf. She is what we call a late deafened adult.
Wow,
and
really?
In that process, I was one of the few hearing people that journeyed with her from the hearing world to the deaf world. And so part of that process was learning sign language and working with her with the organization, the church organization that she was involved in. What eventually happened is that I took over that agency, which was involved with the Diocese of Covington, Kentucky.
Okay.
And I became the minister for deaf and hard of hearing.
Wow.
So I ran that program for about 5 or 6 years, and being involved in providing services, social events, things like that. So you just kind of get wrapped in, and it becomes really a part of you, and it really did help to shape my career.
So you became really an advocate for people that are in the deaf community. And apparently you have a passion for that, too.
I really do. I went to a school in Gallaudet for some classes. I also went to University of Tennessee. They had an orientation to deafness program. And so I went there for a 4-week program and then went back for a 10-week program. And so it was that kind of immersion that got me into it, got me introduced to many phenomenal people around the country. Because the deaf world is really pretty small in the sense of everybody knows everyone.
Okay.
So as far as professionals, I've worked with people from Tennessee, from New York, really all over the country, from Washington, D.C., and you really develop a close bond with those people, and sharing ideas and sharing experiences and sharing technology.
Because what I understand from you, the deaf world, the deaf culture is very unique, a lot like the world of dementia, which I come from. And so we both have our worlds that we specialize in, and we're going to be talking more about that later, about how sometimes the two converge. But now you're in South Florida.
I am. I've been down here over 19 years now, and working. I was worked with an agency for 18 years, and now I've moved on to another agency that's called Audiology with a Heart, and we'll be talking about that agency soon. But we're the newest nonprofit agency dealing with hearing loss in Palm Beach County.
Well, that's good, because I'm sure that's a very good resource for people out there.
It's a great resource, and like I said, at the end of the show, I'll be talking more about that, because people just don't know where to go and what to do when it comes to hearing loss.
Well, I'm curious, your friend that had late onset hearing loss, what caused that?
It's, interestingly enough, for her, it's probably genetic. The women in her family had significant hearing loss, and a number of them went completely deaf.
Wow. So she kind of maybe anticipated it?
Well, she did, and the other thing that kind of really spurred that on, and this is for anyone out there, the number one cause of hearing loss is noise. So she was a rock musician. And so,
Really?
So she spent many of her teenage and young adult years doing rock band stuff, with loud monitors in her ears, and she knows, that that's probably one of the things that really progressed her hearing loss faster than it would have happened normally.
Wow. So, at least she had some kind of a warning that this could happen to her, and she took some steps to get help early.
And she's not typical of what we call late deafened adult. A late deafened adult is somebody who was hearing and then for whatever reason lost that ability. And there's some significant things that happen with that as we talk about maybe these three groups of people. Marianne was different because she was an interpreter, so she was already involved in the deaf community.
I see.
So it was just kind of a moving from basically someone who was an interpreter to someone who needed an interpreter. And so she already had those connections. A late deafened adult, for the most part, is a person who grew up hearing, and for whatever reason lost that ability to understand that verbal communication. And that's one of the differences when we talk about definition of what it means to be hard of hearing, what it means to be deaf, is not the ability not to hear,
right,
but the ability to understand a spoken language.
Okay.
And that's the thing that we really, when we talk about communication methods and what's needed, when we talk about hard of hearing, we can say that that person, with good technology, you could sit down and have a conversation with that person. They can understand a verbal language.
Right.
If that person, no matter what kind of technology you put on that person, can't understand that verbal language, then at least as a communication label, we could say that person is deaf and needs alternative communication methods.
Okay.
And that's one of the big things that happens with those groups of people, of how different they are and what their needs are.
So we're going to be talking more about that too. I'm very interested in this subject, even though, like you say, I don't have a personal relationship with anybody in my family. But, you know, you do run into people out in the community, and you see people in stores and things like that are doing sign language. And, you know, and we need to be respectful of everyone and learn, and not to be intimidated by people that are communicating in different ways too. So we want to talk a little bit about that. And I wanted just to share with our listeners that this type of program is not just for caregivers. This is something that everybody, no matter how old you are, whether you're an adult, whether you're a teenager, or whether you're an older adult, because like you just said, this could happen to anybody, anytime, and different reasons for that. So this is a very, very important topic, not only for caregivers who are caring for somebody, but also for people that should be aware of how loud music and other environmental issues can cause to have some pretty serious deafness.
Yeah, and I think it's important to understand we have three groups that we talk about. We have hard of hearing, we have late deafened adults, and we have deaf. People who have totally different needs. And again, the difference between that hard of hearing and deaf would be, you know, the ability to understand a verbal language. And when we talk about, you know, hearing loss, and, you know, we're going to get more into this into the next segment, but, you know, it's one of those things it's an invisible disability. And we don't see it. It's you know, we understand when, you know, a person has a walker or a wheelchair or a seeing eye dog. You know, those disabilities are very visible.
Or eyeglasses.
and we're able to respond to that. You know, a person who has a hearing loss, so many times because it is invisible, we don't see it, and we don't know how to respond to that when their response isn't what we expected.
Exactly.
And so, you know, just talk about that hearing loss. You know, we're talking about 48 million people in the United States.
Wow, that's
have some kind of a hearing loss.
Significant.
Yeah. And some interesting things: 16% of high school children have a significant hearing loss.
Is that from all their loud music?
Absolutely.
Or is it from cell phones with headphones?
Headphones. It's loud music. It's headphones. It's all that. And a lot of research has been done with how we're becoming such a noisy world.
Well, you know, it doesn't have to be just headphones, because, you know, as I'm driving down the road, you know, and I've got my windows up, right? Mm-hmm. And maybe I even have my own radio on. And all of a sudden, I hear this other music blasting, ba-boom, 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 right?
And most of the time, you don't hear the music.
Right, that's why I hear the boom, the boom, the boom.
And I'm like, you can actually feel it.
You can feel vibrations, you can feel it. I'm like, what is that? And you realize that the guy driving up next to you has got his windows down, and this noise is coming out, and it's not only distracting, but it's like, if I can hear it, if it's bothersome to me, what is he experiencing?
Yeah, it's anything over 90 decibels is, for a period of time, is going to do damage and can do permanent damage. And one of the things that people don't understand, especially young people, is that once it's broke, and you can't fix it. You know, no hearing aid, no technology, no operation, nothing is ever going to make you hear like God intended you to hear, period.
Even with hearing aids.
Yep. And hearing aids are exactly what they are. They're a hearing aid. And we'll be able to talk about technology and things later on in the show. But, you know, my first message to everyone is noise causes hearing loss, period.
Wow, that's amazing. Noise from anything, even lawnmowers, you know?
Absolutely, one of the worst culprits.
Okay. So we're going to be right back with Fred Schott from Audiology with a Heart, talking about hearing and hearing problems and some solutions that we can go, you can go to get some help. So join us after this commercial.
Right from the Heart assists families in finding the right living arrangements for their aging parents. Founded in 2012 by Sharon Agate, Senior Life Consultant, Sharon has counseled seniors and their families for over 20 years in clinical settings and in independent assisted living and memory care communities. Finding the right community can be overwhelming and time-consuming. Right from the Heart takes the stress and worry from you. Sharon will personally meet mom or dad and evaluate their needs and lifestyle preferences and develop a plan at no cost to you. She will accompany you to visit selected communities and guide you every step of the way so you can be assured you're making a well-informed decision. Call Sharon at 561-374-4696. Sharon's promise to you is in your knowing that her advice will always come right from the heart. Arden Courts is not just a place to live, it's a place to call home. Residential living combined with quality caregiving. This is the philosophy behind Arden Courts. Communities created exclusively for individuals with Alzheimer's disease and related dementia who would benefit from a safe and structured environment. For additional information about any of the unique services Arden Courts provides, call 888-478-2410 to locate a community nearest you. Inquire about our educational seminars, resource library, or support groups, or simply feel free to ask questions you may have about Alzheimer's and related dementias. At Arden Courts, we know, we understand, and we can help because memory care is all we do. Remember, call 888-478-2410 for additional information about any of the unique services Arden Courts provides. You are listening to your host, Marcia Teele, an Alzheimer's disease and dementia care expert on CareGiverSolutions.info. If you have a question or wish to share a story, call into the show at 888-565-1470 and talk with Marcia. Now, back to Caregiver Solutions.
Hi, welcome back to CareGiverSolutions.info. I want to take this opportunity to thank our national sponsor, Arden Courts Memory Care Community. Arden Courts is a dementia-specific assisted living community, and they're here right in South Florida. They have 10 locations, 2 in Palm Beach County, and they're located anywhere from around Orlando down to South Florida and then on the other coast of Florida. So we have 10 in Florida, and the others, which are approximately 50, are actually scheduled or sprinkled, as I want to say, sprinkled around the United States. And so they are a national sponsor, and they are a dementia specific, and that's very important when you are considering dementia care for a loved one. Arden Courts is very, very interested and proactive in educating our caregivers, our family caregivers, and so they are a national sponsor to bring to you this information that maybe you wouldn't be able to get anywhere else. So thank you for joining us. Thank you, Arden Courts. And as our monthly giveaway, I have here the 36-Hour Day book. This is a book that's written by Dr. Peter Rabins. It's one of the very first books that have come out regarding caregiving, the struggles that caregivers go through. The reason they call it the 36-Hour Day is we all know there's only 24 hours in a day, but it feels like 36 hours to a family caregiver when they're struggling with caring for someone with Alzheimer's or some related dementia. And so this has become known as the Bible of caregiving. And so if you have not read this book, I strongly encourage you to do so. And Arden Courts is offering this book free of charge to you just for calling in to our 800 number and asking for them to mail it to you. And you just have to give us your name, address, and phone number. We'll be happy to send it to you at absolutely no charge. So you want to be able to call in. So write this down. The number is 888-478-2410. I'll say that again, 888-478-2410. It's a toll-free number, so you can call anywhere in the United States. A real-life person will answer the telephone. You can ask them other questions about other resources that Arden Courts can help you with. No matter where you are, they can help you locate a resource or an Arden Courts that's closest to you. So call us. This book is absolutely free. We want to give it to you to help you be a better caregiver, because the more information that you can get the better your caregiving experience will be, and the more quality of life you and the person you're caring for will have. So call us. Thank you, Arden Courts. We appreciate it so very much. So we're back in the studio with my friend and colleague, Mr. Fred Schott.
Thank you.
And Fred is an outreach specialist with Audiology with a Heart. And we've been talking about loss with hearing, different ways people can get hearing loss, whether it's by environmental issues or from birth or some other factor. And so we've been talking about that, and we want to go back now, Fred, and talk about some of the things that people can do, a little bit more about the statistics, because you mentioned so many people in the United States, are experiencing this, and they really don't know where to turn, what to do, take the first step in knowing. So can you help us out with that?
Yeah, let's just kind of try to put the whole thing into perspective, because it really is overwhelming when you think of around 48 million people in the United States have some kind of a hearing loss. And that's everything from mild to moderate to deaf. So that includes everybody. To break that down age-wise, it's basically 1 in 3 over the age of 65 and 1 in 2 over the age of 75 or 80. Or 1 in 3, I'm sorry, or 2 in 3. So it really is high. And there's a number of reasons for hearing loss. Obviously, it can be age-related.
Right.
The older we get, things kind of wear out.
Is that why it's just things where our eyes wear out, our body wears out?
It does. I think that's part of it, and so it's certainly age-related. Like I said earlier, the number one reason cause of hearing loss is noise. And again, so much hearing loss can be prevented if we just take a look at our environment. How many times are we out there, or our kids are out there, or our grandkids are out there doing the lawn with no ear protection? And lawnmowers and leaf blowers are the worst things as far as noise pollution.
Wow. So what about all these, we all live in communities, or we have someone that cuts our grass. Mm-hmm. And I have my guys that cut the grass. They don't wear any protection, and they're kind of young. And so I wonder if they're even aware of that this could happen to them, because they're not wearing most times protective gear.
It's unfortunate, because usually OSHA has some requirements and stuff for them to take care of that. So, but really, if you're doing lawn work, leaf blowers, if you're going to concerts, things like that, anytime sporting events, all of that can cause hearing loss. So
sporting events too?
Well, when you're out there, you go to the Super Bowl, go to any ball game, and you know how sometimes it can be so loud that when you leave, your ears are kind of like pounding. Okay?
Oh, yeah.
Or you've got that noise, or you feel like you can't hear.
Right.
That's all doing damage.
Does it feel, do you think, like when people experience that, is it a little bit like when you're on an airplane and you have that pressure in your ears and you try to get it out because you yawn and you chew gum, but when you still get off the airplane, you're still not really hearing right? Is it a little bit like that?
I think it's a little bit like that.
But the difference is your hearing will come back after the airplane ride.
And sometimes it won't come back after, if you do that kind of damage, especially over and over and over again. One of the things is, let's move into recognizing hearing loss.
Yes, absolutely. I want to know about that.
Because, unfortunately, it's one of the things that people themselves will deny or won't recognize in themselves. The national average for denial for men is about 10 years. From maybe when they think they might have a problem until they actually do something about it.
Wow.
Now, don't praise yourself too much here, Marcia, because women are running about 6 to 7 years.
Wow. Where they think maybe something's going on, but not really. It was too noisy there, or the person who I was talking to didn't speak up, or they were mumbling. Is that what they say?
All kinds of excuses,
right?
And you get that all the time. If you've ever had a family member or a friend you've gone up to, I have a little problem with your hearing, and they go, my hearing is fine. everybody mumbles.
There you
the
go.
old mumble excuse.
Yeah.
But really, it's I don't know why there's such a denial, in the sense that, does it mean I'm getting older? Does it mean all of a sudden dollar signs are going through my head, because of all the stories that we hear? But the reality is that denial period is doing tremendous damage in a lot of ways with our hearing, with our life, with our environment. And it's interesting that of those 48 million people who have a hearing loss, only 15 to 20% of them do anything about it.
Well, that's interesting that you said that, Fred, because I know a lot of people that put off getting checked. And the reason I think it is because they don't want to have a stigma of having to wear a hearing aid. Now, what's interesting is nobody has a stigma about wearing eyeglasses. And matter of fact, eyeglasses are fashionable.
Absolutely.
Eyeglasses they put on, there's different colors, there's different shapes, there's different sizes. You can get the bling, the ladies can get bling, and everybody wants to sport the latest in eyeglasses. But eyeglasses are there because they can't see well. Okay, but how do you get across the stigma of somebody that can't hear well and they have to wear a hearing aid? So I know you're going to tell us about that too, but you just hit home with something, because I just came to mind someone that you just described that they're in denial, but their denial is not because they don't know they have it. They know they have it. They just don't want to do anything about it because of what they have to wear.
Yeah, because of vanity and things like that. It's just really interesting. Now, what we're seeing, though, is a shift, a slow shift.
Okay.
Because now the people who are walking through my doors more and more are baby boomers. The difference is that us boomers grew up with technology.
Right.
And so we're living longer and we're living healthier. And so what happens is a baby boomer, I think, are willing to invest in technology and to do anything we can to maintain the quality of life that we desire. So statistically, that baby boomers as a group, have a higher percentage of hearing loss than their moms and dads did at the same age.
Wow.
And the reason because of that is, I think, because of our noisy world and the things that we've done. So it's real important, I think, that people move into the fact that they recognize that they have a hearing loss. And some of the damage that can happen is the longer that you wait, what happens is hearing loss is so subtle,
right,
that we start to lose things that we normally heard, and our brain forgets what to do with it. One of the biggest complaints when people move into hearing technology is overwhelmed by the sound. And what happens is that they have to retrain their brain, what to do with all that sound. I mean, you and I, we hear background noises, but our brain knows what to do with that. If it's over a period of time, if you've lost those background noises, and all of a sudden you feed it back into the brain, it goes, oh, wait, what's going on here?
Wow.
So that's one of the things that we really encourage people to get a hearing test. Especially if you're 65 or older, or you think you have a problem, even if you don't think that you need hearing aids, a hearing test becomes like an X-ray. And it gives your hearing professional something to look at when you go back next year to compare and to see
so it's
what's
like a
going to happen.
baseline.
Absolutely.
Right? So everybody should get a baseline hearing test, sort of like women that get a baseline mammogram.
Absolutely.
Right? Because even though they don't have breast cancer, they want to get that baseline, so then the next time they go, whether it's a year or if they're very young, sometimes they wait several years, and then they can see if there's any changes. And that's what you're talking about.
Absolutely. And before we move into a break, because we're just about a minute away from a break, I want to bring the question in of the whole concept of hearing loss and dementia.
Well, I was going to ask you about that because I've heard that hearing loss can contribute to people with getting worse on their memory. Is that right?
That's right. And I think when we come back to the next section, we're going to talk about this. It's a question of which came first, the chicken or the egg. And there's we're going to talk about some studies that were done at Johns Hopkins just to kind of talk about what their findings are. but really what we all need to be aware of in our own lives and the lives of the people we take care of, our parents, our grandparents, of how hearing loss and dementia really have a connection.
Well, I'm very interested in that because that's my field of dementia, and we're going to be listening to Fred talk about that as soon as we come back for our next commercial sponsor.
Grab a pen, because you're going to be given some really important information and a phone number to call that will really help you.
Did you know that the law allows people to protect assets and qualify for Medicaid? Did you know that Medicaid can pay for home care, assisted living, and nursing home care at even the best facilities and with even the best of agencies? Hi, I'm Scott Solkoff, and I write the book on Florida elder law. My father and I have authored the leading textbook on Florida elder law, now in its 14th edition. I lecture, I train, I teach other lawyers and judges all about the law, and I can teach you too. I love teaching and advising my elderly clients and their families. Good elder law planning can save the family nest egg and result in a tremendous difference in quality of care. Board-certified elder law attorneys, I'm board certified, are specialists in planning for incapacity, wills, and trusts, and protecting assets against the cost of long-term care. Come in and see me. I charge $250 for a 2-hour meeting, and I don't think I've ever had one person tell me it wasn't worth many times that amount. We don't do free meetings, which often are nothing more than a sales pitch from someone who really needs the business. Call me at 561-733-4242. I've been in business for over 20 years doing just this work, and am certified as a specialist by the Florida Bar. Set an appointment. That's 561-733-4242. Come see me in my Delray Beach office on Atlantic Avenue. You just have to call my office at 561-733-4242, and I'm Scott Solkoff. Let me help you protect your assets, qualify for Medicaid or VA benefits, have greater peace of mind knowing that it's been done, and a higher quality of life. So again, call me, Scott Solkoff, at 561-733-4242, and remember, call your parents, not just to tell them about Scott Solkoff, just to tell them that you love them and appreciate them. I'm going to call my parents now.
The hiring of a lawyer is an important decision and should not be based on advertisements alone. You can call our office at 561-733-4242 to get more information about our qualifications and expertise. Take a pen and jot down this information. Right from the Heart assists families in finding the right living arrangements for their aging parents. Founded in 2012 by Sharon Agate, Senior Lifestyle Consultant, Sharon has counseled seniors and their families for over 20 years in clinical settings and in independent assisted living and memory care communities. Finding the right community can be overwhelming and time-consuming. Right from the Heart takes the stress and worry from you. Sharon will meet with mom or dad and evaluate their needs and lifestyle preferences and create a personalized plan at no cost to you. She will accompany you to visit selected communities and guide you every step of the way so you can be assured you're making a well-informed decision. Call Sharon at 561-374-4696. Sharon's promise to you is in your knowing that her advice will always come right from the heart. You are listening to your host, Marcia Teele, an Alzheimer's disease and dementia care expert on CareGiverSolutions.info. If you have a question or wish to share a story, call into the show at 888-565-1470 and talk with Marcia. Now, back to Caregiver Solutions.
Hi, welcome back to CareGiverSolutions.info, the program that was created just for you, the family caregiver, that gives professional expert information to help you solve your caregiving problems. So thank you for joining us today. I'm very excited to have with us in our studio Fred Schott. He's the outreach specialist for audiology with a heart here in South Florida, and he's sharing lots of great information that anybody can use if you're any age, because we all are susceptible to hearing loss, and we've been talking about that. And before we're through today, Fred will be sharing some information that you can call, get specific information to your personal situation, not only here in South Florida, but throughout the state of Florida as well. So we want to go back to Fred, and thank you, Fred, again. We've been talking about hearing loss, and then before the last commercial break, we brought up dementia, and you mentioned how dementia and hearing loss they have a correlation. And can you explain that, please?
Yeah, this is something that's really new in the whole understanding of dementia and Alzheimer's and the connection with hearing loss. Probably the biggest people who have been really working on this in research is at Johns Hopkins, and Dr. Frank Lin has done a number of studies and really kind of got the process going, because we really never thought about putting the two together. And now we're finding out that, and like I said, which came first, the chicken or the egg? You know, does hearing loss lead to Alzheimer's or to lead to dementia? Or if you have dementia and then you add to that hearing loss, does it speed the process? And the verdicts are still out on that, but I think that what they're really finding out is that the two go together, and not necessarily a cause and effect, but the reality is that when you put the two of them together, that you have a real problem. In a lot of the studies that they've done, they've taken groups where people had normal hearing. These are senior adults, normal hearing, and people with significant hearing loss, monitored them over years of untreated hearing loss, okay, and found out that the progression or the onset of dementia was quicker than with the people who had the hearing loss than the people who did not. Some of the theories that are coming with this, you know, is, and a lot of study is going to happen, but there's a couple theories. One is that when you struggle to hear,
right,
you know, and when you have a hearing loss, and it takes a lot of energy to try to understand people, because people think, well, you can't hear them. Well, you hear them, but you don't understand
them.
It's that discrimination
Well, I
issue.
had a friend who had some hearing loss, and he tried to cover up, and so he didn't want to, he was ashamed that he couldn't hear. And when someone would ask him a question, he didn't really answer it appropriately because he didn't hear, and he assumed what he thought they were saying, and so he sort of said something in general, sort of cover up and not really answer the question.
Yeah, and what people do is, when they're in that situation, is they'll try to control a conversation so that they set the topics, they ask the questions and can anticipate what the answers are going to be, and that really gives them, you know, help so that they don't feel embarrassed. But one of the theories is that when you're spending so much energy to try to understand, that it really overworks the brain. And as you overwork the brain in one area, okay, that it causes other areas to be diminished. And so what they're thinking is that as you use all that energy, you're losing the ability to cognitive ability.
Okay.
And so that's one of the theories.
What's the other one?
The other one is basically one of the biggest things that happens with hearing loss is social isolation. And I think from someone who's coming from the dementia world, that one of the things that leads to dementia and can really aid it and get it going even quicker is when people isolate themselves and they lose that contact with other people. They lose that ability to interact with people. And so with hearing loss, like you're saying, people get embarrassed. It gets so bad, they just check out from the world. And what they're finding is that that isolation is such a big component to the progression of that kind of dementia.
I totally agree with you on that, because I work with seniors, and of course I come from the dementia world, as you know, and I see that older people that already have dementia, if they have a problem hearing, they cannot participate as well in the socialization, in the activities that are provided to them because of their hearing loss. And, you know, everybody knows in the dementia world that the better someone has access to stimulating activities, the more socializing that they do with their peers and with others, it helps a person with dementia to thrive and to be healthier and happier. And, they're really at a deficit if they already have dementia, and now they can't hear on top of that because they're not getting that stimulation and that socialization that they really need.
Absolutely. And one of the recommendations that have come out of these studies is that they're really saying that aggressive treatment for hearing loss, and usually that means some kind of hearing aid, is that aggressive treatment, catching it early, and maintaining the brain activity so that you don't go through that struggle, you don't go through that operation, can really stave off the progress of dementia.
So that leads me to the question: what do you do? What do you do, and what can help?
Well, again, when we talk about hearing technology, there are some misconceptions, and I think this is real important to understand, not even for just people who have dementia or who are older, but when it comes to hearing technology, we're all looking for the cure, and that's the difference, say, between, we talked about eyeglasses and hearing aids. If you have the right prescription and you put on eyeglasses, it's like, oh, wow, I can see.
Yeah, all of a sudden, this is great, right?
Unfortunately, it doesn't work that way with hearing aids.
No?
Hearing aids they do exactly what they say they do. They aid your hearing. So, like I said, nothing is ever going to be perfect. Nothing is ever going to cure your hearing loss. That's kind of the bad news.
Not even surgery or anything?
Nothing is ever going to make you hear like God intended you to hear.
Wow.
Now, that's the bad news. The good news is technology is booming. They can do things today that they couldn't do 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 1 year ago.
Wow, really?
And it really is. And certainly with, the advent of cochlear implants, the advent of different kinds of technology, hearing technology, whether, it's internal or external, that they can do things that we never dreamed of.
And you're going to tell us what a cochlear implant is, aren't you?
Well, I certainly will. Thank you. That's a good point. A cochlear implant is a surgical process where there's what we call the cochlea, which looks like a seashell, okay? And when the little hairs in those die, okay, that's what stimulates the brain to hear.
Okay.
So what they do is a cochlear implant is they're able to put electrodes in there and a processor, and then the sound basically sets off those electrodes that sends electronic signals to the brain, and people are able to hear. And we've got some great success stories. It's not for everybody. It's not successful for everybody. The misunderstanding is that it restores your hearing, and it doesn't. It helps you to hear, but you hear differently than you did before. So you have to learn how to hear again.
So what's the basic difference between a cochlear implant and a hearing aid?
A cochlear implant is basically when a person has gotten to the point where hearing technology, hearing aids, will not help them anymore.
I see.
So it's really kind of that next step.
It's like the last-ditch effort to try to do something.
Absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely. And so the thing with hearing aids is you have to have a really good understanding and be comfortable with what they'll do and what they don't do. And I always tell people when they work into use that market and go into that technology, there's two questions. Number one, is it better with it than without it? Not didn't make it perfect, but is it better? And number two, is it better enough to be worth the financial investment?
So are you saying that sometimes having a hearing aid isn't worth it because it doesn't improve?
And that's a question that people can only answer for themselves. Again, you have to understand technology, and that's why you have really good hearing professionals out there who can help guide you through that. And people just think that it's going to be a cure, and it's not. You have to work with it. You have to work with technology, and it's something that you just don't buy and never come back. It's kind of like a car. You don't buy a car, drive it off the lot, and never come back.
You got to maintain it.
You got to maintain it, and it takes a while to tweak those hearing aids and to get it to work with your particular hearing loss.
So everybody's different.
Everybody is different, And, you really have to have your own experience. So many times we hear, well, Aunt Mary, she had a hearing aid, left it in the drawer.
Right.
Well, you need to get your own experience because things have changed.
Or Aunt Mary had a hearing aid, and every time I went to give her a hug or a kiss, I heard blaring noises that hurt my ear,
Really?
right?
Yes, you have all the kinds of things that
But
happen.
that's because it was an old style?
Well, there's all kinds of things. That whistling that you hear
Yes.
is what we call it's feedback.
Okay.
And it's like, have you ever been to the wedding reception where the guy with the microphone stepped in front of the speaker?
Absolutely.
And that's what's happening with the hearing aid. You remember the microphone and the speaker are that really, really close. So when you cover it, it causes that oscillation.
Okay.
So that's kind of what happens. But it's real important for people to if you think you have a problem, even if you don't, if you're old enough, if you're over 65, go get a hearing test. Many of us provide that service for free. And again, it does give you that relationship with a hearing professional that when you go back for your annual, because you may not be ready for anything, but it's going to happen so subtly that your hearing professional then has something to compare
That
it to.
baseline that we talked about.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And so people get a hearing test and they have a baseline. And how often should they go back to get another test, in your opinion, if the baseline shows that they have good hearing? When you have eyesight, it's called 20/20. I don't know. I don't know what they call it if you have good hearing. Is there a?
It's just normal hearing. you
Okay,
know?
normal hearing, not 20/20 for eyesight, 20/20 for
normal
hearing. Okay, so normal hearing.
But what happens if, especially as you've gotten older, is to get that baseline. If your baseline is good,
Then how often should you go back?
Maybe every 2 years.
Every 2 years, okay.
If you do have some issues, but maybe you're not ready for technology yet, you always want to probably go back yearly. I would say once you hit 65 or 70, probably should do that yearly. Hearing health needs to be part of our normal health regimen. We do it all the time. We go to the doctor, we get our blood pressure taken, we do blood work, all that stuff. We get our eyes checked. We need to put hearing in the middle of that.
And you know what I just thought of? This is very funny because I just thought of people that have a problem with hearing, especially when they're in a caregiving situation and you have a well spouse and the spouse that has dementia, let's say. If either one of them have a hearing problem, oh my gosh, look how much worse caregiving is going to be because they're not hearing what the other person is saying or understanding what the other person is saying. And now there's conflict and it's like, I told you, George, I told you. Well, I didn't hear that. And so you don't know if George didn't hear it or George is covering up because he has dementia and he really didn't understand what his wife said because he's not receiving the information because of the dementia. And you don't know which one it is, or it could be both.
Yeah.
But think about the conflicts that could be resolved within a caregiving situation if they could hear better.
And here's something, I'm glad you brought this up because basically when you're working with a person who has a hearing loss, you need to set up what we call a good communication environment. And you have to understand the dynamics of sound. The most common form of hearing loss is a high-frequency hearing loss. Okay? Every foot
that's the one that first goes. Is high frequency.
Yeah, that's normal.
Like George.
Yeah. Well, and that's why they people have a problem hearing women and children or understanding women and children because of the high
like I
voice.
have. When I get excited, I get very high pitched.
So what happens is that every foot that sound travels, it loses high frequency quality. So that's why you can never talk to a person with a hearing loss from another room or across the room because by the time the sound of your voice reaches, even if they have hearing aids, it's bad sound. So you need to set up a good communication environment. This is true with anybody who has a hearing loss, especially with a person who has dementia.
Yes, I can see that.
The first rule is you need to be upfront and personal. So what I need to do first is I need to get your attention. I need to either touch you, I need to call your name, because people take what they see and what they hear and they put those things together.
Correct.
Especially with a person with dementia, you have to get them focused.
Yes.
The other thing you need to do then is you need to look at them. Okay?
Make eye contact.
Make eye contact. The worst thing you can do, doctors do this all the time, sorry doctors, is they'll talk to you and then they'll turn their back and they'll write on the chart
as
and they'll
they're
keep
talking.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
And
they
it's
do that all the time.
I know. So it's real important. You have eye contact. Speak to the person. Don't cover your mouth. Okay? Make sure
you're not eating when you're speaking.
Absolutely chewing gum.
Keep your mouth free of
and this is really
gum.
good for anybody who's a caregiver. I think of hospitals of anywhere, but to look them and to speak slowly and distinctly. Now it's important. Don't overemphasize. Sometimes we want to go, "How are you today?" And that's not normal.
That's not normal. Right.
But to speak normally and to speak clearly.
And not necessarily real loud, because that's going to throw them off too.
Absolutely, especially if they have hearing aids. Let the hearing aids do the work.
Okay.
We have a tendency to, as soon as we see somebody who has hearing aids, we want to go up to them and we go, "Hello, how is really loud?" We do the same thing with people who don't speak English for as English speakers.
Right, which makes no sense.
I know. We think, well, if we talk loud, they'll understand us better. Same thing with people with hearing loss. So it's real important. With the dynamics of sound is that in those high frequencies in the English language, that's where most of our consonants lie.
Oh,
and so if you think of the soft consonants like C, S, F, so when you're talking to a person, what happens is they get this mulch of vowel sounds and they miss the consonants that give our English language its word definition.
So they're trying to figure it out because they only get part of the words.
Absolutely, and that's why they do that with contacts, what they're talking about, trying to read your lips, getting visual clues.
Right.
And so that's why when you're talking to someone and you ask them a question and they respond inappropriately, it's because they responded to what they thought you said.
So when we talk about communication, I know that's going to lead into the technology. And when we come back, you're going to tell us a little bit about that, because I know there's way too much to tell us, today. But you're going to tell us a little bit about that. And then we're going to talk about what you can do at for your services. And when we come back, you're going to find out how to contact Fred and his wonderful staff, and you have an audiologist on staff. So you're going to be able to get that information. So stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Take a pen and jot down this information. Right from the Heart assists families in finding the right living arrangements for their aging parents. Founded in 2012 by Sharon Agate, Senior Lifestyle Consultant, Sharon has counseled seniors and their families for over 20 years in clinical settings and in independent assisted living and memory care communities. Finding the right community can be overwhelming and time-consuming. Right from the Heart takes the stress and worry from you. Sharon will meet with mom or dad and evaluate their needs and lifestyle preferences and create a personalized plan at no cost to you. She will accompany you to visit selected communities and guide you every step of the way so you can be assured you're making a well-informed decision. Call Sharon at 561-374-4696. Sharon's promise to you is in your knowing that her advice will always come right from the heart. Residential living combined with quality caregiving. This is the philosophy behind Arden Courts. Communities created exclusively for individuals with Alzheimer's disease and related dementia who would benefit from a safe and structured environment. For additional information about any of the unique services Arden Courts provides, call 888-478-2410 to locate a community nearest you. Inquire about our educational seminars, resource library, or support groups, or simply feel free to ask questions you may have about Alzheimer's and related dementias. At Arden Courts, we know, we understand, and we can help because memory care is all we do. Remember, call 888-478-2410 for additional information about any of the unique services Arden Courts provides. You are listening to your host, Marcia Teele, an Alzheimer's disease and dementia care expert on CareGiverSolutions.info. If you have a question or wish to share a story, call into the show at 888-565-1470 and talk with Marcia. Now, back to Caregiver Solutions.
Hi, welcome back to CaregiverSolutions.info. We're here with Fred Schott, outreach specialist with Audiology with a Heart. He's been showing us all about what is involved in hearing loss. And now we're to the point that we want to ask Fred about resources. And tell us, Fred, exactly what we can expect and what you can do for people out there that might be contemplating getting some help.
Well, thank you. First thing I want to talk about is a statewide program, and it's called Florida Telecommunications Relay Incorporated. This is a nonprofit that the legislature set up over 20 years ago. Their whole purpose is to provide free amplified telephones and other equipment, communication equipment, to anyone who's a Florida resident and has any kind of a hearing loss.
Wow, that's great.
It is a wonderful program. It's absolutely free. To qualify, you have to be a Florida resident, which means a Florida driver's license, voter's card, or state ID card. And then you have to have a certifiable hearing loss, and you have to have a home phone line. If you're in Palm Beach County, you can certainly call our office, which is 561-366-7219. I'll give that again. But if you're anywhere else in the state, if you call their number, and it's 800-222-3448. That's 800-222-3448, or go to www.ftri.org. Wonderful equipment to help people to hear over the telephone.
So you have that brochure, and can our listening audience actually call you and have you mail them that information?
They can call us. If they live in Palm Beach County, we're able to set up appointments for them to come to different places to get the telephones.
Oh, good. So tell them how they can do all of that.
All right. We're Audiology with a Heart. We're a nonprofit audiology service. We have two basic services that we provide. One is that we're a distribution center for the free telephones for that state program. So anybody who lives in Palm Beach County, certainly call us. We have distribution locations all over the county. So we really try to make it so that you don't have to come to our office, which is located in Lake Worth. The other program that we have is that we have full audiology services. Dr. Debbie Shadoff is our doctor of audiology.
And she's so nice.
She is so sweetie. And but what we're able to do is to provide at no cost hearing tests and a consultation. If you choose to purchase hearing aids from us, one of the things that makes us different is because we are a nonprofit, we're able to keep our profit margins a whole lot lower. So you're able to get a better bang for your buck.
Great. So give us that information again. Give us real quick your phone number and your address.
Okay. We're called Audiology with a Heart, and our phone number is 561-366-7219. That's 366-7219. We're located at 2324 Congress Avenue in Palm Springs, which is North Lake Worth. Just give us a call. We're able to set up an appointment for you. If it's for the phones, we can do that hopefully close to where you live. If it's for a hearing test and a consultation, there's no cost for that, but you have to come to our office.
Wow. So there you go. You have the best resource available. I want to thank you so much, Fred, for coming in and sharing that with us. I want to thank our national sponsor, Arden Courts. Don't forget, call in for your free copy of the 36-hour day to Arden Courts at 888-478-2410. And I hope that you join us next time on CaregiverSolutions.info.
Thanks for joining us for this week's Caregiver Solutions with Marcia Teele. Join us next week as Marcia, who has 15 years of Alzheimer's disease and dementia care experience, brings you more needed information to help with the care of your loved one. This show can be seen again on CaregiverSolutions.info, and questions can be left on the site, which may be used on the program to help others. See you next week for more Caregiver Solutions.
The opinions expressed on the preceding sponsored program were strictly those of its host,